Let me say officially for the recording, welcome to Cannabitch. Welcome everybody at Tokeativity. Welcome Lindsay MaHarry, my esteemed guest.
And colleague.
And friend, all of the above. Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. So I don't know, what do we want to talk about? We want to talk about women. We were trying to think this morning of what we were going to speak about. And at first we were like, maybe we could talk about cannabis journalism, which if anybody has any questions later on, if anybody wants to chime in, we'll be happy to answer questions about that. But we thought it would be kind of a little inside baseball, and that's not really interesting to people. It's like all we like to talk about, but it's probably not interesting for anybody else in actuality. So we thought that instead we would talk about, you know, we both have a front row seat to everything that's going on in the cannabis industry. And we are awash in industry news and insider news and products and all kinds of stuff. We have kind of an interesting view of how it's growing and changing. So we thought we would give a peek into that by talking about women in the cannabis industry and how branding and marketing is really shifting towards them as they're becoming more of a viable consumer base in the eye of marketers. Of course, we all know that women have always smoked weed and like weed very much, and they grow weed, et cetera, et cetera. But now, you know, now that there's proof of concept after legality and they can actually put some numbers on it, we're starting to see some changes. So that's what we'll be talking about. And thanks, Lindsay, for being here. What do you think about the topic?
So I think that women, just because women have always been under a lot more scrutiny than men in general, I feel like felt less comfortable partaking like in weed, just because, I don't know, there's just such a so much scrutiny on women. And like that thing of like, I don't know, even like when I was in high school and stuff, like it wasn't like there was like a ton of stoner girls really. And like now I'm feeling,
but it wasn't like the thing. And you grew up in California.
Yeah, like, and like I don't know. And now I feel like even the way that they're branding to women, it's still in like almost kind of like a sexist way sometimes. It's like women like to get fucked up too. Like just because it's like a vape or something that branded for women, it's always like low dose, rose gold.
Like, I was gonna say it has to be pink in some way. There has to be
something like like millennial pink packaging, like, and it's just like a little insulting. I feel like
I've never identified with that kind of marketing ever. Like literally ever in any, not just with weed, but with anything. I don't identify with anything.
Especially as like the binary of gender continues to kind of dissolve, it like becomes even more inappropriate because it's just like, who is this for exactly? And I feel like also like a lot of the cannabis branding towards women immediately like fits into this mom thing. And like, there's a lot of people who smoke weed that aren't like canna moms and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, but something we were talking about earlier is like the concentrates thing. And like, there's like, the way that the industry, like what they decide is for women and like what is not for women. And it's funny because it's like, yes, women are generally like newer to weed, I would say, as opposed to
I would say intoxicants in general, it's always been easier for men to use them. And
because they're not going to get fucking raped, honestly. Like women have to be a little more like have your wits about you and like know what's going on, because like we are in danger in a way that men are not in danger. And like, as like harsh as it sounds, it is like kind of the base of a lot. And I think like, I don't know, but like, yeah, the low dose angle is always going to be attributed to women. And then like the sex stuff and like, but I feel like there aren't like a lot of products for women just to like recreationally get high, you know?
And that's why I like the paraphernalia companies that are kind of gearing things towards women, because that's a direct link to consumption, right?
Yeah.
So we feel like they are in some ways trying to cute it up. Like some of those things are intended for like heavy consumers and heavy consumption. And they do make like pretty dab rigs and dab accessories. And that I can at least appreciate because there's some acknowledgement there that like.
Totally. And it's like, yeah, we like stuff like that, you know, but it's like, there's no electronic dab rigs for women. There's no like, which is kind of funny.
What would that even mean? Like what you know, like what would that even mean? I think the Puffco Peak is kind of like, I don't know, if there was going to be a product for women, like that's it. It's sleek.
100%. And that's all a piece of good design in general, you know? And I feel like that's what cannabis brands should be focused more on, as opposed to like pandering to women with pink products. Like, just create cool products that are cool on their own. And like, I don't know, I feel it's going to take a long time though, I think, because I don't know if people really know what to do with the woman market and weed yet. Like,
either. Let me get up some numbers. I pulled on an industry report earlier today before getting on the phone, because I like numbers. Numbers tell the picture better than anything. And I feel like in journalism, part of the problem with journalism today is that we rely on anecdotes more than we do data. So I'm going to be boring with it. But yeah, there was some, so this is from Akerna, and they did an industry, a year-end industry review from 2020. And so the demographics are really interesting in general, but they broke down sales by gender and found that 36.6% of sales were female and 63.4% were male, which actually is probably higher than I would have expected, which is nice. Like, I know a ton of women who smoke, but I also know a ton of women who don't. And again, like, that's anecdote, but still, it was really interesting to kind of see that breakdown and see really, like, you know, there's a 20 point differential there, but the markets really aren't so far off from like being a 50-50 split. And with new as legalization goes on, I am inclined to think that would change, right? I don't know what you're
feel like once the stigma breaks down, it's gonna open it up a lot more. And I don't think that it's like women like to smoke weed less. I just think that they don't feel as comfortable openly talking about it. Because again, like, women are just so judged by society, and it's like, I mean, like, when I meet another girl that smokes weed like I do, it's like, oh, you know what I'm saying?
You know that they smoke a lot, and like, you know, they're the kind of women that's maybe like carrying joints around with them. You're like, oh my God, this is cool.
Like, I'm like, oh my God,
bringing their own.
Yeah, but it's still this feeling of like, oh my God, you smoke weed, you know? So it's like, it's not like something where you're feeling like, I don't know, whereas opposed to men. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of progresses. And I also think that the weed industry is just still very much like a boys' club, and there's only like certain like aspects that they really like let women into in general, you know? And we were talking about this earlier. I think like flower is a very male dominated industry, from the cultivation all the way
the whole
to the whole thing is just like very masculine,
including marketing. Even the marketing wings of it, which in other industries do tend to be women heavy, are super male oriented. Same with concentrates. It seems like they like a lot of flower, like growers and flower companies just haven't really gotten away from the bro-y aspect of marketing and managing, in my opinion.
Totally. And I don't know, like, maybe because it was black market, and like also I think a lot of this just comes from the fact that like it wasn't exactly the safest place for women for like a really long time, and it's still not. Like, it's still up in the Emerald Triangle. Like, you really want to have your wits about you if you're like up there trimming or whatever you're doing, you know? And it's like,
several women who claim they have been trafficked and have very reliable accounts and stuff to back that up.
100%.
Recently, and even still, like, that still very much happens. And that's an aspect of the industry, I think, that now that like things are going legal, we kind of forget about some of the truths that are still happening in the illicit market.
It's honestly, it's like something that happens in subculture. And I feel like weed is just another, like, obviously another subculture, but like surfing, skateboarding, punk music, all of these things, like even like hardcore and stuff, it's always been like this thing that wants to weirdly ostracize women for some reason. And it's like odd, because it's like, it seems like a subculture which exists as the antithesis to the mainstream, and the mainstream being so sexist would be like a more inclusive space. But it's like the same thing you see in like all these other subcultures. And like the cool thing, it's like finally you're seeing like girl skateboarders and stuff, but like you never saw that. And like I think that as weed evolves and becomes less black market and like not something that people are afraid of like going to jail or something, that like we'll see like more women just feeling comfortable to be open about their cannabis use. But like, there's a lot of people I interview in the weed world that are like, oh, who like hit it their entire lives. And like,
Absolutely. I think a lot of people probably chiming in today. I think like the value of cannabis oriented communities like Tokeativity is that it does provide people who aren't comfortable, safe coming out, don't have other, friends, may live in a place where it's not legal. Like it provides them access, right? And I feel like that disproportionately benefits women and other marginalized groups because, they feel that stigma so much harder than anybody. Is really like kind of the way that I think about it. And yeah, like another thing about subcultures is that subcultures tend to benefit those with power the most, right? Which very frequently tends to be men and especially white men. So it's easy and understandable to understand like how women get pushed down in those subcultures, right? Because when you have an absence of accountability, that's when abuses can happen. And so like, it's just a function of being in the shadows that allows bad things to happen to people who lack access to power. And women are, obviously, and people who are obviously a group that like suffers that quite a bit. Sorry, I have like a shaky foundation here, so I'm like, it looks like I have like I need to under it. I'm like having like a tech moment, so sorry for the shaky screen, but just checking in the middle here. We've got about like halfway to go, but if anybody has any questions, I see there's something in the chat. Hello, hi everybody. We totally missed the chat for a second. If any of you have any questions, Lindsay and I are both cannabis journalists for those who've recently joined us. I live in San Diego, Lindsay's in LA. Well, you're in Ojai right now.
Yeah, I'm in Ojai
presently. We're both in California. We're both journalists. We do a lot of product reviews and information. We interview people at all segments of the industry. And we like to cover, different subjects they're in. I cover a lot about kind of like stuff with the legacy and illicit market and growing up in the Emerald Triangle, and sometimes some criminal justice things when we can get stories like that in. And Lindsay, I kind of realized we didn't really properly introduce you.
Like not at all. I totally did. I was like so nervous about figuring out how to get into this thing that I totally forgot. But yeah,
I was like, here.
I'm a cannabis journalist and I make a lot of like video content and I review a lot of products, and I generally write about like misconceptions in the industry, and a lot of my work is in like product angled in some way, or educational based stuff about the plant. And really like what I want to do with the platform that I've created is just kind of like break down the barrier between people, products, and the plant itself, because I feel like there's big walls in between both of those. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, as a journalist, as a woman in the space, and you've interacted with the plant and the industry in many different ways throughout your life, have you experienced kind of any, I don't want to say just anything that made you very aware that you are a woman?
All the fucking time. And especially when I was like first starting out and I was like younger, 1000%. And it's like, a lot of these guys that are fucking assholes will be like famous growers or like people who have like black market clout, and like, sorry, 1 second, my fucking dog, hold on.
Oh, you know the pain that's like the COVID.
Okay.
I know. I'm dogless right now, which was
like, as with all industries, when you're a woman, you have to really like try 4 times harder, be 4 times more thorough, be 4 times more informed, and be 4 times more professional than everyone you're working with to be taken seriously. Like, I don't know, even just
journalism too. Yeah, I feel like in journalism, even not as a cannabis journalist, and then you add cannabis to it, I feel like I'm constantly being challenged by male interview subjects who are like, well, how much do you really? Well, like, they always ask me, like, do you really smoke? And I'm like,
no, it's understanding. And there's this like energy of like, oh, this dumb bitch doesn't know what she's talking about.
Like, that's a thing.
And it's like, you're the dumb bitch who doesn't know what they're talking about. Like, I don't know, but it's constantly annoying. And I mean, I have a million stories. I don't really want to call anybody specifically, but
okay.
I mean,
just keep it light.
Yeah, keep it light. And then just in general, I feel like, but at the same time, I also feel that cannabis is like a weirdly inclusive space, as opposed to like, I used to be a culture journalist and a music journalist. I feel that they're way bigger dicks than the weed people.
Really? I've never been, I used to be in food journalism a lot, which is actually woman heavy, and you just have to deal with chefs, which is kind of a nightmare. But I would rather deal with growers over chefs any day. Like once you've done chefs, like, you cover anybody.
Yeah, chefs are total narcissists. At least growers are like farmers. And they're
right, exactly. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. But I always do feel that like I've been interviewing men in the industry, and they've just looked me point blank in the face and just been like, so like, do you really smoke? And I'm like, or I was sitting across from a grower once, and I was rolling a joint and we were talking. And when I roll, I'm one of those people, I kind of can't like do two things at the same time because I just put my hands, and it's just like this whole thing. So I was fumbling with the joint and like not really paying attention, and it just pretty much was not getting done. And he just kind of like looked at me after a few minutes and was like, do you need help? I was like, no, I just need to stop talking. But like the subtext was there. It was just kind of, he was like, oh, I wasn't sure if you knew how to roll or not. I'm like, yeah, I know how to roll. I don't know. It was just, I just feel like I have to explain myself. It's like that meme that goes around that's like, oh, you like Metallica? Name 5 Metallica songs. And you can kind of very much extrapolate that.
Very much like that. And I just don't know why people feel the need to constantly be challenging women. Like, oh, if you're here, prove why you're here. Prove why you get to be here. And it's like, whatever. Like, I don't know.
Because I smoke weed and I like it. I don't really know.
I experience the most of this in the vaping and concentrate industry, especially like the vaping device people are dicks. Like,
device world is heavy. Like, I have to admit, I have been asked to do a number of reviews, and I applaud you for doing them. I'm kind of terrified, and we spoke about this earlier. I'm terrified about writing more about concentrates because
they're so feverish with excitement to call you out if you get some of this like heady ass complex chemistry wrong. But that's again, and it's like,
it's so subjective. There are 1,000,001 opinions on concentrates and how best to do them. It's easily the newest segment of the product industry, and it's just kind of like,
yeah, and it's like very, very fucking complex, and it's like, but also at the same time, I don't know, it's hard to say. I feel like the people who make, I mean, it varies, of course, but there still is this feeling of like very boys club. It still very much has like the dab bro thing going on, and like it's also kind of which all kind of links into like that candy pens that, you know what I'm saying, of just like like young sex thing that is like the like really sexual girl branding that's linked with like the vaping and like the fat cloud, like.
Right. Well, for a long time, that was one of the only ways that women could really be in the industry, right? Like you were trimming, or you were supporting a grower somehow. You were his girlfriend.
Like,
you were living on the property.
Yeah, I know.
Or you were like a dab bong model, which is like fine and available. But for a while, that was it. And I feel like we haven't fully moved out of that old phase into whatever the next phase is. And I think that the men, maybe especially, are like, oh, is this not happening anymore? And they keep trying to make it happen. And it's like,
I get that. Like, I mean, it's still very much happening. And I just feel like it's kind of like the weed world is kind of branching out into two different things. There's like the overconsumption route, which often leads into the like sex branding and the sexism in general, and this kind of like chauvinistic weird attitude. I don't know, just it has this whole like energy, and I feel like that's really linked to a lot of like just really potent products, and like, and then there's like this other angle, and it's like the wellness angle and the like microdose angle, and that's what's always branded towards women, And right. It's like interesting to see if we can kind of like, I can't think of the word, but just like, sorry, I got a little too soon for this. Like, I don't know, negotiate a middle ground where like, I don't know, there just needs to be more products that are branded towards women without a microdose pink angle is really the bottom.
So what would that look like for you? Like in your ideal world, what is not on the market that you would like, that you feel like would be for women identifying people specifically?
Like, I think that Like,
I think that's theory, but I don't know what I want. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
I don't really know what I want either, but I don't want something that is pandering to women. I don't want something where they're like, oh, you're a girl, you'll like this. You know, it's like, no, I'm a person and I'll like the same thing that a guy likes. But I just think that it's going to, I don't know. I think that
carrying cases are always something that I really appreciate and like a thoughtful carrying case that is not too like stonery, like Rogue Pack, ROGUEPAQ. Do you have one of those? They're amazing. They're these lambskin, black leather, roll-up carrying cases. And they have all different kinds of like removable and zipper packets and everything, and they're smell proof, but they're like really chic and really nice. And you can use that as a clutch, but it's not too overly feminine. It's not, again, the rose gold and the pink everything. Like it's actually could easily be unisex. Yeah. It's very neutral. And like, I like stuff like that, stuff that is intelligent and understands, you know, how, you know, people identifying as women may interact with cannabis. Like they carry a pocketbook and they need a nice bag to put something in, but it's not overly like, I'm a woman, like I like pink.
I think Astro Farms does a really good job with that too, like just creating like just cool like the day to night pack I think is like a really cool like female product. It's like really cool.
You didn't sign the release.
No, Mom, get out of the shot. You didn't sign the release. No, like it's like this joint pack that's based on the positions of the sun and the moon. So like,
I love that. I've never seen these. I'm so
excited. God, they're my favorite. But I'll get them to send you one. They're so cute. But yeah, like stuff like that. It's like, well, they're a woman-owned brand and the owner is really cool, you know? So like she's creating something that like we would actually like, you know?
Right. She knows. Because it's not a marketing team just wondering.
And like a moonrise joint, like an outer space joint, and they're all different strains to like however you want to feel like at the beginning of the day versus the end of the day. So I think stuff like that that's like intelligent and intuitive and cool is going to speak to women way more than something that some random white dude. Like, also, I just had another thought, you know, like, I feel like a lot of the issue with the device world being so sexist is because a lot of those people are tech dudes.
100%. The overlap is not a Venn diagram. It's a circle. Yeah. Like, it's really the same crowd. And yeah, I have thought this. I don't know. Maybe that's like a good article. That's actually that actually a lot of men, but it's a really interesting article.
I talk about like I work with Airgraph sometimes, and like one of the women there. I mean, it's like a topic of conversation when I like meet a woman at a vape brand. She's like, "Hey, what's up? Like, I'm a woman, like you know," and it's like this thing where like, ah!
I know. I do sometimes encounter that like Kimmy Schmidt coming out of the basement attitude. They're like, another woman here. And it's like, yeah, we're here. This is awesome. But that does also like kind of make me sad. There's like this moment of recognition where it's like, you just look at each other and you're like, this is tough, right?
Yeah, and it is. And it's
too, right? Like, I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, and I mean, even in like the cannabis writing world, it's like I know a lot of men that are getting paid more than us, you know, and why?
We talk about this a lot, and we know this for a fact because we know their editors and we know
we all talk about it but it's true, and it's like I've been doing this since 2015, pretty much as long as you can be having written about weed, like you know, and it's like. It just gets a little thankless. It gets a little annoying, but I think that like perseverance is here. And the fact that this is a new space, it's a new industry, and it's exciting that like we can make this whatever the fuck we want. We just have to do it, you know? And now is the time. So
there's a crown for the taking, so to speak. And I think, you know, you can see that across the board, and there are a lot more women CEOs. There's a lot more women. You know, I just got a press release about a testing company and a testing lab that is entirely run and staffed by women, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And that's notable because it, you know, that's notable in science, it's notable in cannabis. And so like, that's kind of cool when they collide, because a lot of, you know, the roles are marketing roles filled by women, which is great. And in a sense, and we're in communications too. So we fall into that demographic as well. But it's cool to see, you know, I know women growers up in the Triangle. You have Janine Coleman in Mendocino, who is, you know, she literally got the Appalachian system going. She's responsible for an economic impact study going on in the Emerald Triangle right now. I mean, Janine Coleman is legit. She's been growing for 25 years. So, you know, I know that in Humboldt, there's like a legacy of old women growers that story hasn't really gotten out because it hasn't been safe to do so, and fear of prosecution and all of that. But a number of growers that I'm close with, their mothers taught them. They were back to the landers from San Francisco, and they ended up in the woods growing weed because that's how you survived being off the grid from society. And they all learned how to do this from their moms. That's like my favorite story. That's like kind of my favorite women in cannabis story. But yeah, there's like a legacy of that doesn't necessarily always get told because things changed quickly and men had the access. But what are some women-owned brands that you do like?
Well, I love Astor Farms.
I love Astor Farms.
Yeah, let me think.
That's sun-grown flower out of Lake County, California, for those of you who are in California or don't know. But it's a good story. It's Julia Jacobson and her husband Sam, and his family, they're actually legacy growers from the Emerald Triangle. So they have that pedigree, and also she's a woman CEO. So it's a nice duo.
Yeah, they're great. What other brands do we like that are women?
I like Hello Again.
I also feel like there's this thing of like brands who aren't really woman-owned trying to say they're woman-owned. And
Gloria.
Yeah, are they not?
No. And they make sex products for women. It kind of makes me crazy.
Well,
but there are a number, like Velvet Swing is women-owned. Love is women-owned. Those are all sex brands for women. Humboldt Apothecary, I think might be. I can't remember.
Cosmic View.
If anybody else has any women-owned cannabis brands, product brands, anything that you like, please throw them in the chat and feel free. Again,
Saunders woman-owned. I love Sonder. They're really cute. And they actually have a really cool woman story. They're a lesbian couple, and their mom taught them to grow, and it was like a legacy grower situation. But yeah, there's like a secret history to women in cannabis, and I think like again, women just like it's like trickier, and women don't really want to come out, and women don't like want to go to jail, And I think that like as things,
that's true. They couldn't do it as much in the legacy days,
and also
because
like we have
raising families and children.
Exactly. Like it's not worth it to women if you have a fucking 4-year-old to like tell your story, and because it's like the reality is.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I forgot to mention that. So thank you. That's like an extremely crucial point of the whole reason why we haven't seen the number of women who really are in the space like truly represented.
And like I don't know, I have like some friends up north who like run farms, and it's like the set of problems that women growers face are so much more nuanced and dangerous than men, especially if you have your own little grow. It's like 5 guys come through, and God knows what's going to happen, and it's just not the same, and like.
Yeah, I mean, when I go up to the Emerald Triangle, and I do to report frequently, and I'm on both legal and non-licensed grows, and I'm with people who I know and I trust. They are mainly men, and my friends and sources up there will not let me go anywhere alone. It's like kind of known within my community up there that I always have an escort, and people make themselves available to me, and that's not out of paranoia. These are heavy dudes. They carry guns. They're gnarly, and they know it's a real protection need, and it's wild. As a 35-year-old woman, we're both independent journalists. We've both been around the world, been around the block a few times. I have to say, it's insane as a 35-year-old woman to like know that in order to go somewhere, I need physical protection. That never stops making me feel a certain way, right?
I mean, and it just reminds you that it's like, it's a black market, and a black market, it doesn't just mean the weed's illegal. It means like, there are real criminals involved that aren't up there to like, that are an organized crime. And like, it's crazy, but I don't think, and like, I mean, that's a whole other conversation about like how you want to brand the Emerald Triangle. And obviously I'm not saying it's like a dangerous place that's completely full of criminals.
No, not at all. But like we said, in the shadows, abuses can happen. And that's another reason why legalization is absolutely necessary, because it eliminates the potential for abuse in the industry.
Totally.
I guess it's such a thorny, complicated issue, and there's so many other issues in legal cannabis, racial, criminal justice, that it's hard to really single out one. And it's intersectional; they're all related. But the issue with women and visibility and being able to be like open and out in the space, it's changing, but it's access to capital. That's another burden for women business people trying to go legal, and that's something that
like getting investors is really hard when you're a woman, and like just getting people to take you seriously is like what goes back to what we were talking about before. You just have to be like 2 times a baller, you know? You just have to like be not give them any room. And it's like, yeah, even when I do my show and I do these reviews like off the cuff, you know, and it's always scary reviewing like concentrates or reviewing certain things, because it's like I feel like if I make one little mistake word wise, it's like I have a bunch of dab bros just like waiting on the sidelines excitedly to like correct something that you know, I don't know. But I think like moving forward, it's just like if you're a woman and you smoke weed, just fucking don't be ashamed of it. You know what I'm saying? Like
no, but that's easy for us to say, right? Like I'm not gonna be penalized for it, but I don't have kids and I'm white. And
I've been penalized for it a lot in my life. I got kicked out of school.
I did get kicked out of school.
That's yeah, and like, I don't know, just like stand your ground, because weed is a really important thing, and it has a lot of. There's so much good that can be done with this, and like, I don't know. But again, I mean, I understand if people don't want to talk about it or keep it in the shadows, but I mean, it's a personal choice, but
it is. And ultimately, like, only like, and that's why, again, like the value of communities like this, like at first, like I'm honestly not naturally inclined. I'm a little bit of an introvert, and I'm not naturally inclined to like kind of join groups on mutual interests. It's just like never really been anything that I did, but I've always realized that I've benefited from privilege in some way that I've never really had to. Like I've never really, you know, for all that's weed has been legal in California, I've been here. And so it's a lot easier for me to say that. So I do try to get in that headspace and think of that, because it kind of changes my whole perspective on the industry. And sometimes, you know, I don't know about you, but I get so like in it and like tunnel vision that I forget that like we're bombarded with cannabis industry news all day, every day. And we see things from all sides. Like even stuff like product news, like I can think of, you know, 10 women-owned companies off of, you know, the top of my head, but I'm realizing like that's not necessarily common public knowledge, especially outside of the market of California.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's like something I try to keep thinking about. I was gonna say I like Hello Again. They make suppositories and other women's health products.
The name is too funny.
It is. It's amazing. I'm like totally like it's great. Like it's so that's like I want to make sure like I get that one some airtime. But
yeah,
of course we talked a lot. It's 5:09. We have till 5:15. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to come on the screen and say hi and have any questions? We would love some audience participation. I'm looking at the comments here. Oh, cool. Generational wealth and hemp for women of color. I'm definitely interested in hearing more about that, Bianca. And yeah, the Humboldt women, their potlucks, it is such a beautiful community and such a beautiful story up there. I'm hopefully, I think, doing a story for Mother's Day, probably for Forbes, about the women growers from up there and how they kind of set the tradition for growing based on, you know, they're all moms of different growers that I know. But no questions so far.
No.
Lindsay, do you have any questions? What are you smoking today?
Today, I've actually just got a really cool care package from Sonoma Hills, and like I'm smoking. Actually, another woman-owned brand. They just did a collaboration with Jane West, and they did these like. They're actually really cute. They're like preloaded one hitters that are like supposed to be like a wine flight, like a tasting flight. So they like, you can buy like a tasting flight of these preloaded one hitters, and they're like Jane West one hitters of like their current strain lineup. So then you can try everything out and see which one you want. And I really love that. I think that's really cute, especially for people, because it's like, buying an eighth is a big commitment, kind of. If you don't know like what you're doing with it. Oh, we got a question.
We got a question. If you could interview anyone, cannabis or not, and they want that is a loaded question. I would absolutely interview Joe Biden 100%.
Yeah, he's being a bitch.
He is being a bitch. I would interview Joe Biden 100% and be like, what do you really feel about legalization? What do you really feel about, you know, pot smoking? And I want him.
I would maybe do Kamala Harris and be like,
yes, her too.
Yeah, why did you imprison so many people for cannabis offenses? And what should
yeah, they have to answer for it, and they're dragging their heels and they're saying it's not
like, dude,
people are
sitting in prison. Why the fuck do you guys care about weed? What is really the issue? Because it's not weed. It's clearly, in my opinion, either like tobacco or alcohol lobbyists or the pharmaceutical companies.
That's part of it. And also, like, it keeps the war on drugs is part of, you know, the country's hegemony in other countries, and it keeps us connected to other things. It was never about the drugs. It was a war on race. It was a war on, you know, it was a means to exploit control. And so, yes, I would definitely ask Joe and Kamala. They need to answer 100%.
I have some questions for them.
Don't lie to me. But other than that, I don't know. I actually kind of want to take this further. Like, if there's anybody else, who would I want to talk to? I'm just so stuck on them right now. I've been doing a lot of criminal justice stories, and so I'm like all fired up about
maybe Jay-Z and be like, why is your whole plan with weed to completely wipe out small businesses? That's so shitty.
I like that one too, because
like, like, you don't have enough money. You really have to come in and literally just obliterate. I don't know if you guys know, but basically Monogram's whole business plan is to like come in like a venture capital thing and just buy up everybody and pretty much just obliterate
bring them under the umbrella and take out
and just obliterate like actual boutique farms and small brands and like family run brands. And I don't really see like, especially
you know why they want to do that. That's what everybody wants to do.
I know, but like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why it shocks me. I just feel like it's kind of shocking as someone who has like felt the negative effects of like all that stuff. I mean, he used to be a drug dealer and stuff, and then it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I think it's lame. And also Monogram's weed is way too expensive. It's fucking stupid.
The weed's really dry. The weed's really dry, and it doesn't taste good. It's just old. It's just old. Like everything, I don't know as much in other states, but in California, the weed we get legally in stores it's old because it has to go through testing 870.
Yeah, and like sometimes I'll look at like a pre-roll and it'll be packed in like a year ago. And I'm like, I don't want to smoke this, dude. It's like, if weed unless it was like perfect stored in like a humidor or something, like half of the shit that gets you high is evaporated a long time ago.
And that's why we should all, if we can, be growing our own, which I just started for the first time a few weeks ago. And also, I think, you know, like liberation for women in the cannabis industry, I'm going to go nuts here, depends on growing, because then we don't have to rely on dumb products that are marketed to us for very stupid reasons. Like, we can grow our own and we can circumvent that. So I think growing is the answer for everybody.
Me too. And it's a female plant, and just like, it's for us. Like, women have way more pain to deal with. We have way more reasons to need weed in our lives. Like, men don't even need it. They're just like, like, we need it.
Oh God, that's a good, you know, we're declaring a war on men. Just kidding. Yeah, I'm actually in my boyfriend's house right now because he has better Wi-Fi and better light in his apartment than I do. Home cultivator license here in Missouri. Oh, we can share a ton of growing resources. I don't know about you, Lindsay, but I have a ton. I would be happy. Talia, please make sure we get in touch, and
I can. What a really good thing for that is Green Flower Media. It has a ton. Do you know them?
Yes.
They have, just for anybody who has anything they want to know about weed, Green Flower Media is a really good resource. It has like tons of it's basically just like a I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, but check it out if you're looking for any information about like how to grow weed or anything like that. Green Flower Media.
I have a good book recommendation too. I can't think of it off the top of my head, and I'm sorry to the author, but I'll share it. I promise. It is 5:16, so we're a minute over. But thank you guys for following our stream of consciousness talk.
Yeah, thank you guys for sticking around.
Yeah, as journalists, we get to see a lot, and we get to see a lot from different sides. And so sometimes it can be like a pinball machine because like you connect everything in your head, and it's like this affects this and this affects this. And so we really appreciate you tuning in, asking some questions. If you want to follow up with us, our information is everywhere. We are easily findable and Googleable. So please do. Thanks, Bianca. It was good having you. This was so much fun. So I hope everybody has a good their Saturday, and we'll see you out there. Stay high, guys.
Bye.